They told me to hide. During the party, now I own everything they loved. At my own parents' anniversary, I wasn't a guest. I was the help. That sentence still burns my tongue when I think it. The night before their 30th wedding celebration, I stood barefoot in our kitchen holding a fruit platter so heavy it made my wrists ache. I wasn't trembling from the weight, though I was trembling because of the voices drifting from the hallway. I don't want her in the pictures, my mother hissed, her tone clipped and deliberate. She'll ruin the vibe, my sister Chelsea added, laughing softly like cruelty was just another garnish on the evening's menu. She can stay in the kitchen. Or better yet, stay out of sight altogether. Stay out of sight. I froze toast pressed against the cold tiles, nails biting into the edge of the platter. The words sank deep, like hooks pulling me back through years of whispered exclusions. For a moment, I thought they might walk in and see me standing there, see the shame written all over my face. But they didn't. They were too busy adjusting centerpieces, barking at the caterer, playing the perfect host in the perfect house. They didn't even know I was still there. That was the part that hurt the most. I slid the tray onto the counter and walked out the back door without making a sound. The night air hit me like a jolt of freedom. No shouting, no forced smiles, no pretense. Just me, the stars, and a decision forming in the pit of my stomach. By midnight, the decision had become a plan. I booked a vacation to Key West. Not just any vacation, a first-class ocean view suite, all-inclusive. Paid for with the money they didn't know I had. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe them one. The morning of the party, while they were draping ribbons and fussing over champagne flutes, I was standing on the deck of a yacht. My silk-wrapped dress shimmered in the sunlight. A glass of white wine sweated in my hand. I snapped a picture tilted just enough to catch the ocean behind me and posted it. The caption, "Stay out of sight. Sure, I'll stay out of the country." 17 minutes. That's how long it took for my cousin Andrea to message me. "OMG, are you really not coming? Your mom's freaking out." I sipped my wine before replying. Didn't get the invite, remember. By nightfall, my inbox was chaos. Chelsea messaged me, "Lena, you're being immature. Just come back. We'll make room." My Aunt Vicky accused me of ruining the evening. Another cousin begged me to think about family reputation. Reputation. That word always meant the same thing in my family. Smile, stay small. Don't embarrass us. But as I lay in a hammock, the ocean breeze brushing against my shoulders, I scrolled through their frantic texts and smiled. Because something strange was happening. Without me, their perfect event was falling apart. Dad had a meltdown in front of guests. Chelsea spilled wine all over the cake. The band canceled. The planner quit mid-event. Even my mother, the queen of composure, slipped in the driveway in front of the photographers. Every message I opened felt like a brick crumbling from the polished facade they'd built. And I hadn't even revealed the real part yet. Because while they were unraveling, I wasn't just lounging in paradise. I was preparing the move that would change everything. See, what they didn't know was that the house they were parading, the house I grew up in, the house where I was told to stay invisible, was already listed for sale. Quietly, privately, under a shell name. Taxes had been bleeding them dry for years. But they hid it desperate to protect their image. They thought no one would notice. They didn't expect the buyer to be me. And they definitely didn't expect me to close the deal the morning after their party collapsed. As I lay under the Key West sunglass still in hand, I let myself imagine it walking into that house, not as their afterthought, not as their background character, but as the owner. The one with the keys? Stay out of sight. Fine, I'd stayed hidden long enough. Now it was my turn to step into the light and burn their illusions to the ground. For years, I played the part they wrote for me, the invisible daughter, the background character. At family dinners, Chelsea would gush about her promotions and my parents would beam like she'd cured cancer. If I mentioned my work, they'd nod vaguely and change the subject. Stable is good. Lena, my dad once said when I told him I got a raise. But don't get any big ideas. Big ideas. That phrase clung to me like a warning label. In their eyes, I wasn't built for risk, for success, for more than folding laundry in the basement and clearing dishes at their endless parties. So I stopped telling them about my ideas. Instead, I lived two lives. By day, I was the dutiful daughter they barely noticed. By night, and in the quiet hours between shifts, I was building something they couldn't see. At 19, I got my first job as a receptionist. I stayed late every night, not because I loved it, but because it gave me access to information. I learned how the managers invested, how they spoke about stocks, how they measured risk. I listened, I researched, and then I tried it myself. It started small, an online savings account, then a cautious stock purchase. When everyone else mocked cryptocurrency, I studied patterns sold when they rose and reinvested when they dipped. At 22, I joined a startup no one believed in. Chelsea laughed outright when I told her. An app for logistics. That's not glamorous? You'll regret it. 3 years later, the startup went public. I was employee number 5. My shares exploded in value. That's when I made my first quiet comeback. I didn't quit my job. I didn't buy flashy cars or brag at dinner tables. I just kept building, buying rental properties under an LLC, learning the market, saving relentlessly. They thought I was the weak one because I didn't argue back when they belittled me. What they didn't realize was that silence can be strategy. Every insult, every dismissal was fuel. And while they were busy laughing at me, I was preparing for the day I'd stop laughing along. The Key West trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a message. Every Instagram photo I posted, me sipping champagne by the pool, me lounging on the yacht, wasn't just for strangers online. It was for them. Proof that the daughter they tried to erase had built a life worth noticing. Andrea, my cousin, messaged again on day 2 of their collapsing party. "You're not going to believe this," Aunt Vicky screamed at the caterer. "Half the guests left. Your dad lost it in front of everyone. It's chaos." I typed back, "Sounds like they finally noticed I'm not there." But here's the truth. I hadn't told anyone yet. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming the space where I'd been silenced. The house wasn't just real estate. It was a battlefield. The kitchen where I overheard them mocking me. The living room where Chelsea's achievements were paraded while mine were dismissed. The hallway where I'd been told to make myself scarce before important guests arrived. And now, that battlefield was about to become mine. I'd spent years being the ghost in my own family story. Now, I was about to rewrite the ending one signature at a time. When people ask what revenge looks like, they picture shouting matches or slammed doors. Mine looked quieter, paperwork signatures and numbers in black ink. While my family was obsessing over the perfect anniversary party, I was sitting in a lawyer's office across town, finalizing something they never saw coming. The house. The very one they raised me in, the same one where they told me I didn't belong. Here's the part they'll never admit: they were drowning. Taxes piled up, maintenance costs they couldn't keep up with, loans they quietly stacked under the rug to keep Chelsea's lifestyle afloat. To the world, they were flawless hosts with a pristine home. But behind the curtain, the bank was already circling. I didn't discover it by accident. I've been watching. Months earlier, I overheard my mom whispering on the phone about options and delays. Curiosity led me to dig deeper public records listings under Shell LLC's whispers through mutual contacts. And there it was, 847 Maple Ridge Drive, listed quietly through a boutique realtor under an alias. They thought they could sell it without anyone knowing. A clean break, fast cash. Keep the neighbors out of their business. What they didn't expect was me. The night I saw the listing, my hands trembled, not with fear, but with something sharper: vindication. I called my lawyer, Mark, the same man who'd helped me set up my LLC years ago when I bought my first rental. "Can it be done?" I asked. He chuckled. "Cash in hand, under an anonymous bid. It'll be the easiest deal I close this quarter." So while my family fussed over caterers and photographers, I wired the funds. I didn't need to haggle. Full price in cash. The realtor barely blinked. Money speaks louder than family names. When I signed the last page, Mark slid the folder toward me. "Congratulations," he said. "You own the Hartford legacy now." I sat back staring at the deed. My name. Not Dad's. Not Mom's. Mine. For a moment, I felt 12 again, sitting on those front steps with a notebook in my lap, sketching floor plans of dream houses while my parents told me to stop wasting paper. Only this time, I wasn't dreaming. I was holding the keys. I didn't tell anyone. Not Andrea, not Savannah, not even my own reflection in the mirror. Secrets are sweeter when they ripen in silence. The morning after the anniversary party collapsed in flames, I pulled up to the gates of Maple Ridge in a crisp white dress. The movers' trucks were already waiting. Mark stood beside me, clipboard in hand, his tie catching the breeze. "You're sure about this?" he asked. I looked at the house, the same bricks, the same windows, the same porch swing that once felt like a prison seat. "I've never been more sure," I said. Because this wasn't just a purchase, it was a reclamation. By 2:00 p.m., the house was legally mine. By 2:30, the movers were unloading. And by 3, I was standing in the living room waiting for my parents to come face to face with the fact that the house they built their perfect little kingdom on now belonged to the daughter they told to stay out of sight. I didn't need to call them. I knew they'd show up. By late afternoon, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. First Dad's truck, then Mom's SUV, and finally Chelsea's Range Rover pulling into the driveway like an entourage for royalty. Except this time, the crown didn't sit on their heads. I stayed in the living room, standing near the mantel where so many of their family photos used to hang. My hands rested on the deed folder, my heart steady, not racing, not panicking, just steady. The front door swung open without a knock like it always had when they still believed the house was theirs. Mom stepped in first, her heels clicking against the hardwood, her perfume arriving before her voice. "Lena, what are you doing here?" she demanded, half confused, half irritated, as if I'd trespassed in her kingdom. Dad followed red-faced and already bracing for confrontation. Chelsea was the last phone in hand, smirking like she'd walked into the punchline of a joke she thought she'd written. I didn't say a word. Instead, I placed the folder gently on the coffee table. The sound of it hitting wood was louder than thunder. Dad frowned, picked it up, and flipped it open. His face drained of color. What is this?" Chelsea leaned over his shoulder, laughing before she even read it. "A deed. Oh, please. What are you playing at, Lena? You couldn't afford a used car without help. Stop pretending." "Read it," I said softly. Mom snatched the papers, scanning the notarized seal, the signatures, the legal jargon that was now branded with my name. Her lips trembled. No, this isn't real. This is some scam." "It's real," I interrupted. My voice was calm, almost too calm. "As of yesterday, 847 Maple Ridge belongs to me. I bought it. Cash, full price. The deal closed before your little anniversary party even finished collapsing." The room went still. Dad dropped the papers like they burned him. Chelsea's smirk faltered, replaced by the kind of disbelief that comes only when your favorite toy gets ripped out of your hands. Mom clutched the back of a chair, her knuckles white. You can't do this. Dad finally managed, his voice breaking through the silence. This is our house. Not anymore, I said. Chelsea scoffed, her voice sharp with panic. So what, you think you're just going to waltz in here and what? Throw us out? You're pathetic? You always have been. I met her eyes. Pathetic enough to buy the roof over your head. Her jaw snapped shut. Mom took a shaky step toward me. Lena, honey, be reasonable. We can fix this. Sell it back. We'll figure out another way. No, I said simply. Because this wasn't about fixing it. This wasn't about making them comfortable. This was about every time they told me to disappear, every time they laughed behind my back, every time they made me believe I was less. And now the balance has shifted. I watched them standing in the ruins of their own entitlement, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. The silence after my words stretched long enough to sting. You could hear the weight of it pressing against the walls. For years, those walls had carried their laughter, their whispers, their gossip about me. Now, they held something else fierce. Dad was the first to break. He slammed the deed folder shut and hurled it back onto the coffee table. This is a stunt, he barked. A cruel, childish stunt. You think buying some paper makes you better than us? I didn't flinch. It doesn't make me better. It makes me free. Chelsea's voice cut in sharp as glass. Free? Please. You're still the same invisible girl who lived in the basement. You just got lucky with some stupid stock market gamble. Don't get ahead of yourself. I almost laughed. That's what they always did, rewrite my work as luck dismissed my grit as coincidence. But instead of snapping back, I let silence hang heavy between us. Sometimes, silence is the loudest answer. Mom's eyes shimmered, mascara smudged at the corners. Lena, sweetheart, we didn't mean it. Those things we said telling you to stay out of sight, it was just bad wording. You've always been what I asked, my voice cutting clean. A burden, an embarrassment, a shadow next to your golden child. She stopped talking, because there was no pretty lie left to spin. The movers arrived then, as if on cue. Neutral uniforms, steady hands, rolling dollies, squeaking over the tile. One of them asked, "Where should we start?" I pointed toward the dining room, toward the antique table my parents bragged about at every dinner party. There, Chelsea gasped. You can't touch that, it's ours. Not anymore, I replied. Watching their faces in that moment was like watching royalty dethroned. Panic, outrage, disbelief all swirling into one ugly storm. Dad tried bargaining. We can pay you back, double what you spent. Just give us the house back. I shook my head. It's not about money. Chelsea's voice rose an octave. Then what is it about, Lena? Making us suffer, proving a point. I took a breath, steady and sure. It's about reclaiming everything you told me I didn't deserve. You wanted me out of sight. Now you're the one standing in the shadows. The movers started wrapping the dining chairs in plastic. My mother's hands fluttered uselessly, like she wanted to stop them, but didn't know how. My father paced, fists clenching and unclenching. Chelsea stood rigid, her eyes darting between me and the men packing up their precious furniture. For the first time in my life, they didn't have the script. And for the first time, I was the one holding the pen. The lawyer's voice was steady, clinical, and merciless as he read from the contract. As part of the terms of sale, the former occupants are granted a 48-hour window to vacate. After that, the property is to be cleared and possession transferred fully. 48 hours? 2 days. Chelsea's jaw dropped. You're actually serious about this? I didn't blink. Dead serious. Mom pressed her palms together like she was praying. Lena, don't do this. Please. This is still our home. Her words rattled me for only a second. Our home. The same place where she told me to hide upstairs when guests came. The same walls that heard her hiss, she'll ruin the pictures. Now suddenly she remembered the word our. Dad's temper exploded. Over my dead body. You can't just kick us out like stray dogs. The lawyer slid the contract across the table toward him. Legally, she can. The deed is signed, notarized, and recorded. You have 48 hours. Chelsea shoved her phone into my face. Do you have any idea what people will think when they hear about this? You'll look cruel, unhinged. No one will respect you. I smiled faintly. Respect wasn't something I ever got from you anyway. She sputtered, but I kept going. And you're right. People will talk. They always do. But this time, they'll talk about me, standing up for myself, not disappearing because you told me to. The movers kept working in the background. Every thud of a box closing was like a clock ticking down. 48 hours. Dad tried another tactic, threats. You'll regret this, Lena. We'll take you to court. We'll ruin you. The lawyer shook his head calmly. There's nothing to contest. The sale is binding. If you attempt litigation, you'll lose and rack up legal fees. It was almost funny watching the man who once told me, be grateful we feed you, now powerless in my living room. Mom's voice cracked. Lena, you don't understand. Without this house, we have nothing. The irony nearly choked me. That was exactly how they'd made me feel for years. Like, without their grudging support, I was nothing. But I'd proven them wrong in silence, and now the silence was theirs. I leaned back in the chair, my voice calm but sharp. 48 hours. Use them wisely. Chelsea lunged toward me, her voice shrill. You can't just erase us, Lena. You can't. I met her gaze, steady and unshaken. Funny. That's exactly what you tried to do to me. The countdown had begun. And for the first time, I wasn't the one scrambling to prove my worth. They were. The first night of the countdown was eerily quiet. Too quiet. No screaming, no slammed doors, no pointed insults, just silence heavy enough to press against my chest. I almost preferred the chaos, it was familiar. Silence was foreign. I went to bed in my old room, the same beige-painted cell they once tried to erase me with. But I didn't feel erased anymore. I felt anchored. This was mine. The next morning, though, the storm broke. I came downstairs to find Chelsea pacing with her phone glued to her ear. Yes, Andrea, she's out of control. She's lost it. No, we don't have anywhere to go yet. Of course we'll figure something out. Can we just hello? Hello? She threw her phone on the couch, her face twisted with panic. Andrea, their golden child ally, wasn't answering. Dad sat at the kitchen table, papers spread everywhere. Mortgage statements, unpaid bills, tax notices. He looked older, smaller, as if overnight the weight of reality had finally settled on his shoulders. His voice was low, gravelly. We can't go anywhere. Not in 48 hours. We'll be humiliated. Mom hovered near the window, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her mascara from yesterday still smudged. Her voice cracked when she whispered, maybe if we beg her, maybe she'll give us more time. Beg me. The thought hit me like ice. They'd never begged before. Only commanded, dismissed, erased. I leaned against the doorframe. I already gave you 48 hours. That's more mercy than I ever got. Chelsea whirled around, her face flushed. Do you even hear yourself? You're reveling in this? You want us to suffer? No, I said softly. I want you to understand. The tension thickened by the hour. Movers carried box after box out the front door. I watched my mother's face as each piece of furniture disappeared. The dining table she once wouldn't let me sit at, the china cabinet. I wasn't allowed to touch the chandelier she told guests was imported, while I stood unseen in the kitchen. All of it leaving. All of it stripped bare. By the second evening, the house looked hollow. Walls echoed. The family clung together in the living room, huddled like refugees in their own palace. Chelsea's voice cracked as she whispered, we can't live like this. Lena, please, don't do this to us. I wanted to scream at her. Don't do this to you. What about what you did to me? But instead, I let the silence speak. Sometimes silence was the sharpest knife. That night, I heard muffled sobs through the walls. For once, they weren't mine. And for once, I didn't feel powerless. The 48 hours ended like a drumbeat in my chest. I woke that morning before dawn, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd actually go through with it. Could I kick out the very people who raised me, even if raised really meant keeping me caged in shadows? By 8 o'clock, the movers were back. Neutral faces, efficient steps, tape ripping, and boxes stacking. Every sound was a countdown to the moment of no return. Dad tried one last time. He followed me into the kitchen, voice low, almost pleading. Lena, listen. You've made your point. You're strong. You've proved yourself. But this throwing your own family out, it's a line you can't uncross. I stared at him, remembering his words years ago when I begged to go to art school. You'll never make it. Be grateful we feed you. And now he wanted to talk about lines. The line was crossed long before this, I told him. Chelsea came storming in, then still clinging to defiance. This is cruel, Lena. You're enjoying this. Admit it. You want revenge. I met her eyes. Not revenge, balance. You made me invisible in my own home. Now you get to feel what that's like. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Mom sat silent on the couch, clutching a framed family photo, the one from their 20th anniversary. Everyone smiling in coordinated outfits. Everyone except me. I wasn't even in it. She had told me, stay out of the shot, honey. The colors won't match. She held that photo like it was proof of a perfect family. To me, it was proof of erasure. At noon, the lawyer arrived. Calm, formal, final. Time's up. This property now belongs solely to Ms. Lena. The words echoed through the hollow house. They left slowly dragging suitcases and resentment. Chelsea muttered curses under her breath. Dad's jaw was tight, his silence louder than shouting. Mom paused at the door, her eyes red, her voice breaking. You'll regret this, Lena. Blood is blood? I almost flinched. Almost. But then I thought of every time they told me to stay small, stay quiet, stay out of sight. I took a breath and whispered, blood doesn't give you the right to erase me. They walked out into the fading light shadows against the driveway, no longer towering figures in my life, just people who lost their stage. When the door clicked shut behind them, I stood in the silence. This time, it wasn't heavy. It was mine. The reckoning was complete. For days after they left, the house felt both haunted and brand new. The echoes of their voices still clung to the walls, but slowly, I replaced them with the laughter of my own choosing. Friends came over. Neighbors dropped off welcome baskets. Andrea visited often, bringing stories from the family grapevine. How Chelsea was staying in a cramped condo. How Dad was furious, how Mom couldn't stop crying. I should have felt guilty, maybe even broken. But instead, I felt a lightness I'd never known. I painted the beige walls a soft teal, tore up the stiff carpets, and filled the rooms with furniture that felt warm instead of staged. The dining room that once hosted everyone except me now became a space for real connection pizza nights, game nights, glasses of wine with people who actually wanted me there. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was reclamation. Then one afternoon, a knock came at the door. Not a pounding like Mom's used to be, but a polite, almost hesitant tap. On the porch sat a certified letter sealed in gold trim, my sister Chelsea's handwriting scrawled across the back. I brought it inside, heart pounding, and slid it open carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper written in her curvy dramatic script. Please join us for a family reconciliation dinner, hosted at Andrea's house. 6:30 p.m. Sharp. No apologies, no explanations. Just an invitation dressed up as Olive Branch. I laughed bitterly, at first. After everything they thought one dinner could erase decades of dismissal. But then, I hesitated. Was it curiosity pulling me in? Or some desperate need to know if they finally saw me? The night of the dinner, I dressed with intent. A deep green dress, simple yet commanding. My hair sleek, my posture unshaken. I wanted them to see, not the forgotten girl, but the woman who had rewritten her own story. Walking into Andrea's house, every head turned. For once, silence fell because of me. Not because I was absent, but because I was undeniable. Chelsea broke it first. You look different. I gave her a small smile. Success will do that to you. The table was set, candles flickering, food steaming. But the air was heavier than any banquet I'd ever sat through. This wasn't just dinner. This was a trial. And I was no longer the defendant. The first few minutes were stiff, the clink of silverware filling the silence. No one dared to break. I let them squirm, savoring the discomfort that once was always mine. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. His voice was quieter than I remembered. Lena, we all made mistakes. We know that. I set my fork down and tilted my head. Do you? Or do you just hate that I didn't stay small the way you expected? He blinked, caught off guard. Mom looked down at her plate, stabbing at a piece of roasted carrot like it had wronged her. Chelsea tried to smile, lips tight, hands folded too neatly. We just want to move forward as a family, she said, her tone rehearsed. Let's forget the past. I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table, calm but deliberate. Forget. You mean, forget the part where you told me to hide during your anniversary party, or when you called me a maid at your bridal shower, or when Dad told me I should just be grateful he fed me. The words dropped like stones, each one splashing into the silence and leaving ripples of unease. Andrea, bless her, didn't interrupt. She just watched me with something almost like pride, like this was overdue. I'm not angry anymore, I continued. Anger got me here, but I'm done letting you rewrite my story by skipping the chapters you don't like. You don't get to decide which parts count. Chelsea's facade cracked. So what then? You're just cutting everyone off. I shook my head slowly. No, I'm setting boundaries. And if those boundaries mean some people can't cross them, that's their choice. Mom's voice finally broke through, trembling. I still can't believe you bought the house. That was my choice, I said firmly. The smartest choice I've ever made. Then Dad said something I didn't expect. He looked directly at me, and his voice carried a weight I'd never heard before. I'm proud of you. The room froze. Chelsea's fork clattered against her plate. Even Mom's eyes darted up, shocked. I don't like how it happened, he admitted. I don't like being out of control. But you did what none of us thought you could. You stood up. You made it on your own. And that deserves respect. For a second, I saw something in his eyes of regret maybe, or understanding maybe both. Dinner went on quieter after that. No shouting, no begging. Just the fragile truth hanging in the air, fragile but real. They hadn't gotten the redemption arc they wanted, but they got the one they needed. And I didn't explode or gloat or crumble. I just stayed calm, steady, in control. When I left that night, Andrea walked me to the door. She whispered, "You're the storm they never saw coming." I smiled. I was always the quiet one. They just thought that meant I was weak. When I got home from Andrea's that night, the house was dark and quiet. Not empty, never empty, but calm mine. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the porch swing, the same one I used to stare at as a kid, wishing I was allowed to sit there. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was Chelsea again. Or maybe Mom, but the name on the screen was someone I didn't recognize. A girl from across the country had found my story online. I saw what you did, the message read. Buying the house, standing up for yourself. I just wanted you to know you gave me courage. I've been the invisible one in my family too. I scrolled stunned. Dozens more messages followed. Strangers, women who'd been told they were too much or not enough. Men who'd been overlooked in their own homes. People who felt erased. My story had slipped into the world and become theirs too. And for the first time, I realized something. I didn't need Mom's approval, or Dad's reluctant respect, or Chelsea's half apology. What I had now was bigger proof that my existence mattered, not just to me, but to others walking their own shadow paths. Weeks later, I hosted my own dinner. Not for family, not for show, just for the people who actually saw me. Andrea, my old college roommate, a neighbor who'd offered to help fix my garden fence, a colleague who believed in me. We sat around the reclaimed oak table. Yes, that table. We shared stories, laughter, wine. And for the first time, my house truly felt like home. As the night wound down, I stood by the window, looking out at the neighborhood lights blinking like distant stars. My phone buzzed again. Chelsea's name. This time, I didn't even glance at the message. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need to. I finally understood I wasn't fighting to prove myself to them anymore. I was living for me. And the girl they told to stay out of sight, she wasn't hiding anymore. She was standing right here in plain view, stronger than ever. Thanks for staying with me through this wild ride. Stick around, because the next story might just hit even closer to home.